say Buhari government is not actually calling them terrorists. So I'm just waiting for the time whereby they'll be like, you know what, we want to grant amnesty. I will be sending them abroad and paying them monthly allowance. It's just for them kind of politically motivated. You guys can start your own stupidity as well. All right, thank you very much. When the government is tired, we can easily negotiate with government and tell them, you know what? Is Tolani there? If you want to end this banditry. Okay, I guess so. Yes, okay, Tolani is here. Why not organize? Do you want to talk about the definition of the terrorism and how Nigerian government gets to designate any group to a terrorist group? Mind you, the shared groups, I think, are designated terrorist group, right? Yes. Can you come back to me in 5 minutes, please? I just want to tell you up something that would 5 minutes. I shall. Niyi, please go ahead. Niyi, are you there? Okay, P. Yeah, sorry, P is here. Sorry. All right, okay. Give me 1 minute, I'll come to you. P, let's do a refresher. I'll start with welcome to Knights and Cardinals. New to the club, please join the club by clicking the green house icon. We do have engagements like this, interesting, informative, and engaging conversations we try to have, and we try to have them with respect. So please, let's keep it up. It's been a very interesting conversation where we've looked at the different viewpoints as regards to this issue. So let's keep that up for the rest of the conversation. We do a refresher as it relates to the topic of the day, and we'll go with Nii after that. Okay. All right, so thank you guys. Today we're just examining the comments made by Sheikh Gumi in relation to bandits and banditry in the country. He made that statement on his Facebook page, and it was in response to a growing call across the country that the federal government should officially designate the bandit groups operating mostly in the Northwest as a terrorist group, So he made a post on his Facebook page in response to that. And so there are key highlights of the statements. I'm just going to, highlight some important parts. Now, the statement said that, and this is a direct quotation. So he said, nobody doubts that sentimentalism today overrides sensibility in our polity. For the sake of posterity, some people will have to speak out. The acts the bandits are committing now in the Northwest have gradually over time become tantamount to terrorism, because wherever innocent people are fatal victims, it's pure terrorism. Now he said, yet innocence these days is relative. We agreed if their children and women are also killed, they are guilty by association or collateral damage. So also the bandits may take the same way. It's right for vigilantes to lynch Fulani herdsmen or anyone that looks like them by profiling, but wrong for the herdsmen to ransack villages in retribution. They are pushed to believe it's an existential war, and in war, ethics are thrown to the winds. Yet again, the only helpful part that is against bandits is that no other than them are attracted to join them in the Northwest because of its ethnic tinge and coloration. However, the moment they are termed terrorists, Islamic for that matter, the direct foreign jihadist movements will set in force, and many teeming unemployed youths may find it palatable and attractive. Shouting Allahu Akbar plus AK-47 against a secular, immoral society where impunity reigns are the magnets for extremists and downtrodden, the majority of our youth. And so he went on to say that there is an ongoing fight for the soul of the bandit groups, by different factions of deadly terrorist groups who are trying to claim ownership of the groups. So his main argument is that if the government declares them a terrorist group, particularly Islamic, it simply makes it easier for these Islamic groups to take over the bandits operations and also attract youth under the banner of them fighting against a secular and immoral society. So we're just trying to examine the implications of these statements, what it means for the federal government in their fight against insecurity, and also if or not it reflects the entire view of the leaders of the North in terms of the elected governments of the North. So that's what we're trying to examine. So, Ni, I think it's your turn to speak.
All right, then. Thanks for the floor. Well, personally, this doesn't come to me as a surprise at all, because Sheikh Gumi has actually made a much more terrible statements, even insightful statements in the past, and he has never been questioned, or rather, what we have seen is that he has carried on, as if it's part of the government, which I believe so much that it's part of this government. As a matter of fact, I want to say that I want to think that Gumi is part of the, cabal that is, that is giving this government that support to carry on, and then, telling them that they did not, they have the support of the North to do whatever they like. Because, look, let's face the reality. They say that's why some of us believe that there is what is called, this colonization agenda. We can't, no matter how you explain it, how you want to defend it, it's becoming obvious every day that there is an agenda that is even greater than what we are seeing, even much more than the colonization agenda. It just appears to me that there are some set of people are just all out to make sure that they take Nigeria by force, and then they hold Nigeria in their hands, and then nobody can question them. Nobody can free Nigeria from their hold. Otherwise, how do we explain the statement that Sheikh Gumi made, especially when he started talking about retribution by the X-Men, that then when the X-Men now begins to attack villages, that people that start condemning them, it's a way of saying, look, what these X-Men are doing over time, it's that they are just defending their territory, or they are just defending their livelihood, and they also have right to live. There was a particular video that somebody sent to me when Sheikh Gumi was saying that the bandits are not going anywhere. I quote him verbatim. He said the bandits are going nowhere. They are part of us, and we must live with them. Can you imagine that kind of statement? We must live with them, and we must not make mistake to make them our enemy. Because when we make them our enemy, it will be more terrible. I'm like, I really don't understand what is happening in this country. And that's why we talk about this selective, injustice all around. And then you see the likes of Gumi that has made a insightful statement against ethnic groups, that made a insightful statement, across religious lines and all of that. It's still working on the street of Nigeria. And what we have also seen lately is that the present government, it's a kind of distancing itself from Gumi, and that's why we have seen that Gumi is no more visiting the Aso Rock. I believe that they are just trying to distance themselves from his person. And if you look at that, read that statement very well. That statement that he made very well. It was a kind of appealing to this. I mean, it was appealing to the government stylishly, knowing fully well that yes, they will listen to him, and he will be seen as the one that is standing up to talk, to defend the interest of the North. Because by him saying that when you clamp down on the bandits, what you are doing is that you are creating an injustice for against the bandit, and then by extension for the North. So it's so disheartening that we are where we are, and this is just an injustice. You went all the way out to Kenya to go and go and kidnap Nnamdi Kanu. I'm never a fan of Nnamdi Kanu because of his approach, and can you really blame Nnamdi Kanu? I mean, for crying out loud, Nnamdi Kanu is even the creation of the state. They created the mess. Because while these guys were protesting, performing their civil disobedience against the state, they were killing them in their own dress. And then they went on the ground and they carried gun and start challenging the state. The state now started calling, they call them terrorists. My own challenge right now is that how long are we going to, start? How long are we going to stay in this particular messy situation? How long? Because it does seem that there is no way out of this madness. You protest to show your displeasure. The government clamp on you. They hold you and put you in prison. You advocate peacefully. You are seen as the enemy of the state. They come against your businesses. They come against your family. Look at the extent to which this government will go against anybody that openly advocate or protest against them. Is what we have seen happen to Igbo. In the middle of the night, they came in their own dreads, prepare for war. Let me tell you something, guys. This government is ready to go to war at all costs against anybody, any ethnic group, any individual association that pose a threat against this government. And what is a threat to them? Anybody that openly condemn, openly, show displeasure against the way they are carrying on. They will go on out to plan, to kill, and to do a manner of sort. So it is a mess. And like I said earlier, I said in a particular forum, I think in one of the rooms, I said, look, for some of us, the best way that we know, the best thing for us that we feel it's proper at this point is to activate that survival mode. That look, we have got it to the point that basically we can't do nothing. We cannot practically do nothing because these guys have the instrument of the state. The militaries in their hand, the DSS in their hand, and if you come out openly to say anything, they are going to unleash heaven and earth against you, come against your business, come against your family, come against anything that's of interest to you. Make sure that they pull you down at all costs. So we just have to see how can we even survive beyond this point. Knowing fully well, and the worst scenario is that knowing fully well that 2023 is not even promising at all. Either we vote, either we don't vote, either you engage in the electoral process, either you don't engage. These guys have determined whosoever they want to be the president. What they're doing right now is to look at the political calculation that favors them. They are looking at, can we give it to the... In fact, the only thing that is actually hindering the northern cabals, and when I say northern cabals, I'm not generalizing, I'm just saying that less than 1% of the political leaders from that region that are in the seat of power, the only thing that I believe is hindering them is the pressure from different ethnic groups. Otherwise, they will have done the consequence and bring another political leader from the north among them and impose it on every one of us, and nothing will happen. And that's why I want to encourage every one of us. We must not keep quiet. It might seem as if we are losing our base, we are losing our ground. No, we are not. The pressure is getting to be out there. They are feeling the pressure because they will have done much worse things if we have not been putting up the pressures on them. So the pressure must go on. The civil disobedience in whichever way, advocacy, whichever way, at the local level, national, international level, we must carry on this pressure because this pressure is the only thing that is keeping them from going to the extreme and impose, new political leaders on us. Right now, they are in the calculation. They are having this political calculation. Okay, what do? Do we give it to the likes of Tinubu? Do we give it to the likes of... That's what they do. And then at the end of the day, if they sit down in their political meeting and they see, let me tell you guys, these guys have common interest. Either APC, PDP, when it comes to common interest, they are lying. And that's why we are making mistakes. Some I see people fighting themselves. Say, look, these guys that we are confronting, they are not even fighting themselves. They might come openly and say all manner of things. For example, I give you for a case in time. Look at the recent wedding of Fayoshe's son's wedding. Can you see the kind of caliber of political leaders that were represented in that place?
These guys have common interest. And so we must also look at our base and see how do we align beyond, social differences or culture or whatever, so that we can make our base to be so strong and keep mounting all this pressure. Hopefully, that whatever pressure, external pressure, internal pressure that will mount on this system, it can as well, impart a little bit to cause them to make a political decision that will favor us a little bit, so that when 2023 comes, the space can open up a little bit, and then whatever civil engagement that we have at that time can come to bear, and then we can have a listening leader that can actually listen to the crowds of Nigeria and then be able to do the right thing. But beyond that, as we talk right now, I bet you there is hardly nothing that you and I can do to make this present government to listen. They are not ready. The body language has shown, their past antecedents has shown, they are not ready to shift base. There is nothing anybody can do under heaven and earth. They are not even hearing what you are saying. What they want to do is to remain in power. So the only thing we can do right now, activate your survival mode, make sure that you live beyond 2003. Or those who want to jackpot, well and good. If that is your own way of staying alive, let's keep alive. And then 2003, by God's grace, we keep on this momentum. And I'm hoping that we can one day get there and then have a great country that we all desire. It's so pathetic. This is where we are, and then it's terrible. Thank you for I use my mic.
Thank you, Mr. Nii, for your sobering contribution. Kenny, I believe you're next. Please go ahead.
Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Ken, loud and clear.
Oh, all right. Thank you. I just got on this, and it's an interesting one. And please, before I make my short contribution to this, I would want to define the general definition of terrorism, which I believe is the unlawful use of intentional violence to achieve a political aim. Now, the other way around, if you want to define a terrorist group, remember the first one I did was terrorism. The second one, a terrorist group, is a political movement that uses terror as a weapon to achieve its goals. Now, remember, in these two definitions, there's always that word there, political. So however you want to go around it, there's a political face to this, for undertone to this whole thing playing out. Now, a Gumi from nowhere has been in this picture all the while. He's even been in the picture than our government, for crying out loud. And nobody gives a hoot to what he's done. Nobody asks questions. The few that have tried to ask questions were nailed. Now, okay, let's go back to places like Southern Kaduna. In Southern Kaduna, we have people like Reverend Father Kuka, who tried to, lend his voice when he felt his people over there are being killed, apart from being marginalized. That's the Southern Kaduna Christians. At some point, this government went as far as writing a petition to Rome, apparently to derobe him or to sanction him from either talking, or better still, resign from his priesthood. Remember how far this thing went. Now, as at that point, you would say that Kuka is the guy who's coming from the political angle. That's why I marked the two words political in the two definitions, terrorism and terrorist group. Now there's a guy, okay, the second guy from Southern Kaduna was Mailafia Obadi. I remember our former deputy governor of CBN. Mailafia, he died like some 3 weeks back or a month back. Yeah, he died in some hospital in Abuja. Now these men were sought after. They went after them as far as DSS arresting even Obadia Mailafia. We all saw that in the news. Why? Because they said one or two little things. They didn't even say much. And they were cramped down on. Gumi has been in this space for God knows how long. I don't care how we want to hide this truth too. But what I'm saying is that if it was any other person from any other enclave in this country, the DSS would have been at work by now. The presidency would have spoken. The chief of the Chief Justice of Nigeria would have acted up. But But why this man? Is there something he knows better than we do that he's not telling us? I'm not saying he's not wrong by saying if you tag these people terrorists, yeah, it will now assume more bigger positions that other younger people will want to join them since they've been tagged. That I understand his point, but why always him? Why him? But this guy knows more than we think he does, and nobody's asking questions. Our investigative journalists so far, nobody has ever dared to ask that man questions. Things has been happening around this man. He's been the only one who knows all the routes to the whole forest, wherever these guys are. He's the only one who knows they are not Nigerians, they came from outside. And he's still the one who knows that if you go against them, it will linger, there will be reprisal. And
is it just me or we lost Mr. Kenny for a minute there?
We lost him.
I think we're not ready yet to fight this thing. We're not ready yet. If we're ready, and no wonder the American coalition that came at some point, they left. They walked away. Even when Chad wanted to work with us, to an extent, the late president who died like some 4 months back or early this year, he walked back. At some point, he was calling on our military, come on, take over from there. I'm heading back to my enclave. Anybody who try to help us have a way of backing down. We've bought so many whatever edge to Kana and all of that. Where are they till now? This motherfuckers has been still cramping down on us, failing our airplane. And you say they are not terrorists. What again are they? Please. What else? Anybody who's got answers can actually give me, please. I need answers.
They are the
what
owners
are they
of
now?
Nigeria, Ken. They are the owners of Nigeria.
See? It's wrong. We can't be petting this whole thing. Let them tag them down. See your IPOB did not. What was the worst thing IPOB ever did that they were tagged there? My Lafia Obadia said that. Remember, Autumn of Benue said, he said, IPOB, that he didn't see whatever they must have done that made them made them proscribe them. Then what about these ones who's been killing in numbers? Imagine coming for killing spree and we're counting bodies like 78. My brother, none of these things are chicken. They are humans. We got create. And we are still painting it like, is it until it affects us directly? My problem is that the media space is not doing anything about it. Forget all these things. We'll write a day or two, this one, radio station stock. Though there are TV stations who are trying, I won't lie about it. But if everybody can face it like the way they faced this very bill, they almost passed now, the e-voting. If everybody faces from National Assembly, House or whatever, no matter how corrupt we are, let's face this one, it's killing us. It's eating deep into us. If they face it like the way everybody faced that one, yes, presidency will listen. Now, human being, even if he's deaf, he will hear. He will know that, oh, this is a problem. There's a public outcry here. I can't go forward without addressing this issue. These people know big pastors. I'm sorry, how many percent are they? And they came from the corridors of Mali, Senegal, and whatever. What's that? They are not from this country. Are you dragging here with us? What's that? Who does that? Go and try it in ordinary Ghana. And in fact, I yield my mic here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenny. So, I mean, you asked important questions, right? And that's who is a terrorist and what is terrorism? So we're going to get a legal perspective on this. And Solani is going to help us with the Terrorism Act to help us ground the conversation in legal, definition of the terms we're using. What is a terrorist? What amounts to terrorism and who is a terrorist? So, Solani, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, please, who was the last speaker?
That was Mr. Kenny.
Oh, it's like Mr. Kenny. Mr. Kenny, don't vex. Okay, sorry, guys. Okay, so just for us to have a proper understanding of where we are and what exactly amounts to terrorism, I'll be reading. I'm going to try not to make any insinuations. It's just for us to understand what is considered terrorism under the Nigerian laws. So I'll read the Terrorism Act 2011, but then there's been some amendments to that act in 2013. So I'm just going to try to read both of them side by side. The definition has not been amended, so I'll be reading directly from 2011 in terms of the definition. So basically, and then I also want you to sort of juxtapose it with the IPOB, because they have been proscribed a terrorist organization, just so that we know where we are as regards Nigeria as an entity or whatever it is that it is called, whether it's country, I don't know. Okay, so the section 1 of the of the 2011 Act basically prohibits terrorism, and that has been amended in the 2013 Act, and that has sort of tried to include the prohibition of financing of terrorism. So let me just read some part of the 2013. That's the amendment that says that, okay, all acts of terrorism and financing of terrorism are hereby prohibited. So it goes further to say a person or body corporate who knowingly in or outside Nigeria directly or indirectly, willingly, A, does, attempts, or threatens any act of terrorism, B, commits an act preparatory to or influence an act of terrorism, C, and I think this is important, omits to do anything that is reasonably necessary to prevent an act of terrorism. Let me read that again. Omits to do anything that is reasonably necessary to prevent an act of terrorism. D, assist or facilitate the activities of persons engaged in an act of terrorism or is an accessory to an offense under the act. Then E, participates as an accomplice in or contributes to the commission of an act of terrorism or offenses under the act. F, assists, facilitates, organizes, or directs the activities of persons or organization in an act of terrorism. G, is an accessory to an act of terrorism. Then H, incites, promises, or induces any person by any means whatsoever to commit an act of terrorism or any of the offenses referred to in this act, commits an offense under this act, and is liable on conviction to a maximum of death sentence, right? So those are sort of the things that the act seeks to prohibit. Now, let me go to the definition of terrorism. So I'll be reading from the 2011 Act here. It says, in this section, act of terrorism means an act which is deliberately done with malice, afterthought, and which A, may seriously harm or damage a country or an international organization. Let me read that again. May seriously harm or damage a country or an international organization. B, is intended or can reasonably be regarded as having been intended to 1, unduly compel a government or international organization to perform or abstain from performing take that again. Unduly compel a government or international organization to perform or abstain from performing any act. 2, seriously intimidate a population. Seriously intimidate a population. 3, seriously destabilize or destroy the fundamental political, constitutional, economic, or social structures of a country or an international organization. 4, otherwise influence such government or international organization by intimidation or coercion, and involves or causes, as the case may be, an attack upon a person's life, which may cause serious bodily harm or death. 2, kidnapping of persons. 3, destruction to a government or public facility, a transport system, an infrastructure facility, including an information system, a fixed platform located on the continental shelf, a public place or private property, and is likely to endanger human life or result in a major economic loss. 4, the seizure of aircraft, ship, or other means of public or goods transport. I don't think that is necessary. So let me just go down because the sections are intertwined. So if I continue reading, I think people will just be confused. But I think I can highlight the important sections, which are 1, seriously intimidate a population, seriously destabilize or destroy the fundamental political, constitutional, economic, or social structures of a country or an international organization. Let me just quickly chip this in. For those that, because I see Dr. Adedako is here, for those that were in the room we held yesterday, there may be something to take from here. otherwise influence such government or international organization by intimidation and coercion, and involves an attack upon a person's life, which may cause serious bodily harm or death, kidnapping of persons, and then, so yeah, basically that's what our laws define as terrorism. So we can think about what IPOB is doing, and I also just quickly want to read something that I found interesting. Sorry guys, just a second. Okay, so it says, this is from the 2013 Act, in section 5. It says, any person who knowingly in any manner, directly or indirectly, solicits or renders support for the commission of an act of terrorism or to a terrorist group commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to imprisonment of a term of not less than 20 years. So I think we can connect some dots here. Any person who knowingly in any manner, directly or indirectly, supports or renders support for the commission of an act of terrorism or to a terrorist group commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 20 years. Sorry, just lastly, not lastly, second to the last thing. There's also in section 8, it says where a person has information which he knows or believes to be of material assistance in preventing the commission by a person or organization of an act of terrorism or securing the apprehension, prosecution, or conviction of another person by an offense under this act and fails to disclose such information to any law enforcement or security officer as soon as reasonably practicable, commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to imprisonment of a term of not less than 10 years. Right. So you know who the terrorists are, for example, you know what they're up to, and you fail to disclose, you commit an offense under the Nigerian law. But just not necessarily on the topic, I just thought maybe I should just quickly read something. I don't know, for whoever is listening in the room, and just based on conversations that I hear on Clubhouse, I just want to read this. Sorry, Olabode P, forgive me, please. So it says in section 16 of the 2013 Act that any person who belongs or professes to belong to a prescribed organization commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 20 years. I'll read that again and I won't make any comments other than just reading the act. Any person who belongs or professes to belong to a prescribed organization commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 20 years. That's just about all I'm just going to say. So when we're having conversations and we're making comments, I think we should all just be guided and be careful. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Tolani. We're nominating you for the SAN position. You know, I think that's a unanimous decision.
Can I make my presentation now?
Yes. Ukonu has been blinking, but so I think Ukonu will go, and then you can go after Ukonu Rotam. But the act, as Tolani has just read it out for everyone, I think it speaks for itself regarding what amounts to acts of terror, who a terrorist is, and then who can also be designated as a sympathizer of terror. And of course, it also spells out the legal consequences for each and everyone, you know, in these various categories. So I'll just let Ukonu go, you know, so that Rotam can follow. Ukonu, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah. On the subject, on the topic, that the statement from Gumi, as someone had said earlier, he has said even worse things. But this statement is very interesting because it basically says, yes, your unity is based on how you treat the bandits. If you call the bandits terrorists, and they are terrorists, then Nigeria will be destroyed. Well, I think the right thing should be done. I think since they have committed acts of terror, since they have caused the destruction of property, of life, infrastructure, kidnapping, they, by the definition of Nigerian law, have qualified to be terrorists. Since Nigeria, the Nigerian state itself, has enabled them, pays ransom to them, as have been admitted by a sitting governor, aids them, has been captured with videos, allegedly, not confirm, allegedly providing supplies and food. And in fact, an immigration officer has admitted that he provided food to these bandits. That's enabling. So the Nigerian state itself is guilty by its own law of terrorism. So how can a terrorist presume to persecute someone else of terrorism? How can someone else who is actively carrying out of acts of terrorism against the citizen persecute another person or accuse them of terrorism? What was the events of 2010 last year, 20th of October last year, if not an act of terrorism against the people by the Nigerian state? These are acts of terrorism carried out by the Nigerian state. What was the extraordinary rendition of Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya, if not an act of terrorism by the Nigerian state? So we need to understand that we are dealing with a rogue nation. Nigeria is a rogue. It has gone completely bonkers, completely and utterly bonkers. The failed country that is now just gone completely crazy. They don't follow their own laws. They don't obey their own court orders. They don't follow any rule of norm that is acceptable. You're calling IPOB a terrorist, it's a terrorist organization in the same place that bandits are. In the same place that bandits are. And just to highlight how ridiculous that sounds, IPOB is not seen as a terrorist organization in other countries where they go about freely holding meetings, holding rallies, holding protests. So it means that nobody takes Nigeria seriously in that tag of terrorism to IPOB. It is just a very clear thing. No one takes it seriously. It means it's a nonsense. It's just, a ridiculous idea, because IPOB members are freely going about holding meetings, holding rallies, holding gatherings in other countries. So are we now saying those other countries don't know what terrorism means, or what the definition of a terrorist suggests? Nigeria is the one that is a terrorist state. Nigeria is the one carrying out acts of terrorism. So in terms of moving forward, I don't think it's enough for people to just say, oh, they have control of everything. We can't do anything about it. We have to take it. No, we don't have to take it. We have our voice. We can speak. We can speak. We can shout. We can talk. And if all of us talks, then they cannot silence all of us. And that is the moral responsibility of every decent human being, to speak and not to remain silent in the face of injustice. Because if you cannot speak in the face of injustice, then you are no better than a sheep. You're no better than a cattle. And that's just the fact. Now, you can have your views about Biafra, you can have your views about the Oduduwa Nation, you can have views about these independence movements, you can have your views about the way forward for one Nigeria. That's fine. People are entitled to their personal opinion. I don't have any quarrels with that. But on the fundamental issue of justice, doing the right thing, we have to be united on this and say what is wrong is wrong is wrong till tomorrow. You cannot designate an organization that says, give us a referendum so that we can test the popularity of what our people want for themselves. You call them terrorists. And then in the same country, bandits who blow up rail lines, kidnapping people, kidnapping children, destroying property, sacking whole communities, and you say, no, those ones are just bandits. It's just a nonsense. It cannot happen. It's not possible. No decent person can make sense of that for me. I yield.
Thank you, Kono.
Sorry, can I just quickly ask a question?
Okay.
Just for the House.
Okay.
If I go by the section that says that anybody who omits to do anything that is reasonably necessary to prevent an act of terrorism is an offense and is liable to conviction of a maximum of death sentence, would you say that the president is a terrorist himself? Would you say that the terrorist is doing something in contravention of the law? Not what Tolani said, though, what the law said.
Yes,
but omit to do anything that is reasonably necessary to prevent an act of terrorism. It's just a question for the House.
Absolutely. The president and the Nigerian state, yes, are in breach of that rule, and they are. Should be considered terrorist state. Among the other things, they've actually committed acts. Like I said, extraordinary rendition is kidnapping, international kidnapping. That's an act of terror. Paying bandits, that's enabling them. That's an act of terror. So by those definitions you've already read out, by Nigerian law, the Nigerian state itself is a terrorist organization.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. That's an important question by Tolani, And I'll just let Rotam, are you there? Rotam, it looks like you have connection troubles. Or Rotam has connection troubles.
Can you guys hear me now?
Okay, yes, it's better now.
Okay, as I said earlier, always Tolani for the win. Somebody said we're recommending her for something, and I support. Okay, my presentation will go this way. Okay, I've been on this app, and most people confuse me for many things, and they think many things of me. Let me lay the groundwork of my fundamental principle. How me I think. I believe I'm a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I fundamentally believe every individual have the fundamental right to bear an opinion. And I believe every individual who is a citizen have a fundamental right to express their opinion. And I will fight for them to bear their opinion and express their opinion. If the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria believe that the person made a slanderous statement, a libelous statement, or a dangerous statement, I also believe the government of Nigeria have the responsibility to legally take on that particular individual. But I, again, Rotam, will also fight to ensure that that particular individual is legally treated within the laws of Nigeria, within the international conventions that Nigeria is a signatory to, and within international laws that Nigeria signed on to. I, Rotam, will also ensure that particular person which is treated with dignity and with humanity. So that's why if you see me on this particular app, I don't believe in secession. I'm not a member of IPOB. I have the sentiment because I'm an Igbo person, so I understand the sentiment behind Biafra. So you will never see me talk down on anybody who is a secessionist, a Biafra or Dudu or whatever. You will never see me quarrel with the person because I believe the person has a fundamental right to express their opinion, to bear and express their opinion, whichever way they want to. And I also believe the person goes foul against the law, the state has a responsibility to take on the person. And I also believe, again, I will be on the side of that particular person and put the burden of responsibility on the state to act within the confines of the law, and to treat that particular individual with respect, dignity, and with humanity. So that's where I always stand. So most people actually confuse where I stand. Now that just said, let me now go back to what I'm saying. I don't think there's anybody here who is surprised with what Gumi said or what Gumi has been doing. It's basic for anybody to see. Gumi is who Gumi is. Now, that brings me to where we have the last part of my conviction when I stated the burden of responsibility. The burden of responsibility, no matter how people have been trying to twist it and wing around and do anything, is on the state. And we should actually make it, any particular time we're making a presentation, there's a distinction between the federal government of Nigeria and the Nigerian state. And most of us that actually comment here don't know it, no, don't make that distinction or even acknowledge it. There's a difference between federal government of Nigeria and the Nigerian state. What Tolani read the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is a Nigerian state. It is not the law of the federal government of Nigeria. It is a law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is a Nigerian state. Like I said again, it's not a law of the federal government of Nigeria. So the federal government of Nigeria can actually run afoul of its own law. That's of the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That said, so in everything I do, I always ensure I put the burden of responsibility on the state. You know why? Because I can live with the lawlessness of an individual. I can live with the lawlessness of an organization. But I can't live with the lawlessness of the state, because the lawlessness of the state actually put virtually every individual in harm's way. And we are here currently as we are here in Nigeria, what Nigeria is today, because we have accommodated and accepted the lawlessness of the state. That's actually why we are here. You see IPOB, you see Nnamdi Kanu, you see Ogbowo, you see Oduduwa, it is actually effect of the lawlessness of the state. So that's why anytime I see people twist and turn to try to put the burden of responsibility on those individuals, I wonder, do you personally understand the fundamental principle of being a citizen of the state itself? So that's why I always put the burden of responsibility on the state. So this guy will have this people because the state has actually failed in living up to its responsibility. So what we have here is actually what the Nigerian state, and by extension, the federal government of Nigeria, because the federal government is an instrument of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has also failed in living up to its responsibility. And by going by what Tonali read out, that means the federal government itself is an enabler of terrorism. It's terrorizing us, the citizens. It's enabling terrorism on us, citizens, wherever you are in Nigeria. And if we don't raise up to our voice to actually act on it, to ask that the federal government of Nigeria, which by extension is our agent, I wonder then what we are doing. If we don't raise up our voice as citizens, free-born citizens of Federal Republic of Nigeria, don't raise our voice to request and demand that our agents, which is the federal government of Nigeria, don't live up to our laws. Because those laws that Tonali read, they are our laws because they were actually formulated on our behalf. Because it's an expression of our will as free citizens of Nigeria. If we don't demand of it and start twisting and twinkling how to put burden of proof on one entity or one entity, that means we actually what? We are part and parcel of the world, the oppressor. Like as Eloise rightly said, evil. When you fail to take side, because in any particular encounter, in every what will I call every situation, you must take side as a citizen. If you say you're an honorable citizen, you must take side. At any particular time you fail to say side, to be neutral. Neutrality does what? It empowers what? The oppressor. And in a particular instance, the state is always the oppressor. That's why if you see anywhere throughout history, responsible citizens ensures what? That the burden of responsibility is on the state. Because what? Every one of us here, every person in Nigeria can live with the lawlessness of a private citizen. We can live with the lawlessness of a private organization, but none of us can live with the lawlessness of the state. So that's why anytime I make a presentation, my burden of responsibility is on the state, and the state continues to fail. That's why we'll have all the issues we have, because the state continues to fail. And if we keep quiet and do nothing, we're actually enabling that state to continue to fail. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotam. Before someone else goes, Godson, I see you flashing your mic, and I think you will go next. But I just have a question, and I think Rotam, you can address this question, and then we can take Godson's contribution. You made a distinction between the state and the government, which is, which I think that's, a good summary of your contribution. So in a case where the government now is violating the laws of the land, what options are available to citizens, right, in bringing the states to account? And also in consideration of broad immunity laws that the state enjoys, that they can, do certain things.
Okay. If I'm wrong, Tolani Awasan, please put me on that. Sovereignty, final sovereignty lies with the people. Sovereignty lies with the people. Legitimacy lies with the people. You see these two instruments, so sovereignty and legitimacy. It lies with the people, and the people are the citizens of Nigeria. So if the federal government is misbehaving, the sovereign, who are the citizens, are the people that will rise up and say, this is not what we want you to do. This is not what we demand of you. That's why I said sovereignty and legitimacy lies with the people. And again, like people always say, there's a presentation that they made yesterday, which I enjoyed, about legitimacy. You see, the federal government of Nigeria, or the state, let me say the federal government of the state is so particular about elections, because election gives them what? A semblance of what? Legitimacy. Who here has watched that thing, that particular thing, that game they call wrestling, WWF? They make it look so real. They make it look so real, but it is fake, right? To watch it, it makes it look so real, but it is fake. But you see the difference between boxing. Boxing is so real that it is real. So in any particular state that they want, the semblance of legitimacy is more important than legitimacy itself. They are giving you WWF. That's what they're giving you. So that's why they can actually spend the whole money instead of them to protect you, but to hold an election. They see any particular state where legitimacy is real, they would rather protect the citizen than to hold that election. Right? But in a state where legitimacy is fake, they will kill all the citizens, 1,000 of them, to ensure elections hold, because they want to maintain what? Semblance of legitimacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Rota. Godson, please go ahead with your contribution.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear. Godson, are you there?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so very quickly. I think you said a lot of my sentiments have already been shared here, so I'm not even going to rehash those ones. But on this issue, this whole bandit issue, there are several things I find quite interesting, and I've always found it interesting. So the first one would be that if you're familiar with like computer science, or if you're a software developer, you're into programming, anything, you'll be familiar with the term polymorphism. And that's the ability of data or a function or a class to take on multiple forms, right? So in this same issue, I see a bit of that same thing, right? At one time, they seem to be an entity that's disorganized, spread, not under one umbrella, not having a shared goal or a shared target, just acting on their own volition. And then, on the other hand, they also seem to be an organization that has, right, has a spokesman or a spokesperson, has ideas, right, and has one single way of placating them, one single way of approaching them and treating them. So sometimes it leaves one wondering, okay, which is it actually, right? Are they a disjointed group of people acting on their own, or are they like organized? Is there a system to them? Because it seems like when people are trying to spin certain narratives about them, they pick and choose which one it is, depending on what question is being posed at them. So you can pose certain questions and the response will be like, oh yeah, they are not organized. They are not coherent. They are not together. And then other times it's that, oh, they do have a central ideology, or they do have a central theme to them, a shared goal, so to speak. So there's that one, right? And it makes it difficult for somebody to pin down, okay, because if you are still struggling with the basics of, okay, who are these people, right? Then the question of how to deal with them would be far away. The solution to that would be far away, because you need to know what it is that you're dealing with in the first place before you start saying, okay, you want to start hashing out solutions. So number one, there is that part, right? And on top of that, there is the part where there are certain things that when we talk about them, we have to like be very clear, because I could assert something and someone else could assert the same thing, but behind the scenes, the question is, are we all going for the same thing? Is it the same target that we have? Even though we are saying the same thing, we are using the same words, but behind all of that, is it the same thing? Do we have the same meaning attached to it, right? And that's why when we are having these discussions and then the topic of the question of Nigeria's unity comes up, right? And we have people that say one Nigeria. The question is my one Nigeria the same as yours? Because we are using the same words, but the question is, behind those words, do we mean the same thing? Are intentions the same? So when I look at this situation, I just find a lot of things like very, very interesting. Another thing I find interesting though is that to people living in the cities, right? Those living in Lagos, those living in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Calabar, all the major cities across the country, right? Yeah, there is insecurity, but it's not close to home. You're not experiencing it the way, I mean, fine, someone in Lagos may complain about being harassed by agberos from time to time or being robbed in traffic. Those ones have been a mark of Lagos for a very long time. But we are not thinking of, oh, there is this organized body that goes to kidnap people and goes to blow up public installations and stuff like that. So for those in the cities, the threat of insecurity is remote. And many people think it will remain like that. Some people think it will remain like that for a long time, but it will eventually get to the cities. But for those outside of the cities, it's not. I mean, we are hearing reports of bandit attacks in Oyo State. This is the Southwest. For most of all this time, we've been thinking of all of the insecurity has been happening in the North, and then in the recent times, we've been thinking of it as happening in the Southeast. But now we are seeing some reports, we've heard of reports of attacks in Oyo. I think they have been in Ekiti or so, I'm not really sure, but I'm really certain of the Oyo one, right? We've heard of kidnappings by bandits in Edo State. So you ask yourself, is the insecurity as remote as we think it is? And then another interesting thing is that when we hear the reports of all these things from the South, the scattered reports from the Southwest, all of the reports in the North, right? And any other reports that I don't think the South has that as a clear and present problem at the moment. But when we hear these things, we hear, okay, bandits, right? But when it happens in the Southeast, it's unknown gunmen. And of course, at this point, unknown gunmen is like another word for IPOB and ESN when it's being reported. So that leaves one wondering, like, is it that the bandits don't do anything in the Southeast? So we are assuming at this point in time that any and all attacks that occur in the Southeast are not bandit attacks. I find it very interesting because any violence that goes on in the Southeast, whether it's kidnapping, whether it's killings, whether it's destruction of public property, is pinned on IPOB and ESN and the usual suspects or non-gunmen. But when it happens outside of the Southeast, it's pinned on bandits. So it's, again, as I said, I'm just finding all of these things interesting, right? Some people posit that, these developments are a build-up to 2023 as a way of destabilizing the country to a point where elections will not hold in that year. And for much of the time, I've just looked at it as, conspiracy theories. And people are free to come up with whichever theories they want. And I mean, some of them are valid, some of them are not. Only time will tell. But when you start putting all these things together, you begin to see some sense in some of these things. Because as I said, this insecurity is not as remote as those who are living outside of the rural areas think it is. This is a reality for a lot of people that are living in villages, in small towns across the country. It's a daily reality. So for them, the insecurity is a clear and present danger. For those living in the cities, in the big cities, it's something remote. But if in actual fact, these conspiracy theories are real, then eventually, before 2023, these attacks will begin to occur in the cities. And then, the country will just devolve into chaos. And who holds an election in a chaotic environment? So I don't know. Again, for me, it's still a conspiracy theory, right? We don't have any conclusive proof that this is the play that's going on. But I'm not going to write it off entirely because I mean, all I can say as a person of science is that there is no proof for it yet, but there is no proof to conclusively dismiss it either. So again, as I said, I'm just finding these things quite interesting. I'm trying to make whatever sense I can. I don't have any conclusions. I don't have any theories per se. I'm just noticing and observing events and just finding them interesting and trying to make sense of them in my head. But once again, I just find these appellations, right, bandits against terrorists, because again, when you are reporting IPOB terrorists, you are reporting the others bandits. In the Southeast, whatever violence that happens, IPOB. Outside the Southeast, whatever violence that happens, bandits. And then you connect that and start asking yourself, okay, again, do these bandits have no interest in the Southeast, considering that at this point in time, there are reports of their activities everywhere except probably the South-South, which is sort of, I won't say shielded, but there is a separation, right? Because it's been going from north to south. So the Southeast provides some sort of border, right? And the Southwest does as well to the South-South. So if it's going north to south, clearly the South-South would be the last to be affected. So are we going to say that, since it's gotten to the Southwest, that these people have no interest in the Southeast? So all the things going on in the Southeast, because if you ask me, right, what's going on in the Southeast is that even if it's ESN and IPOB, and I have no reason, I have no proof that they are the ones causing the violence, but even if they are the ones, right, the current state of the Southeast is such that any number of non-state actors could be having a field day, knowing that whatever activities they engage in will be blamed on IPOB and ESN. So even when these people, the IPOB, they say, you know what, we are not the ones that are doing some of these things or all of these things, I mean, there is a possible case to be made for that, because, as I said, the current state of the Southeast is such that any number of non-state actors, and I'm not even just saying headsmen now, I'm saying like criminal enterprises could still be doing their own, because now it's a free-for-all. Anything that goes on will be tagged IPOB. So now they are free to do whatever the hell they want. They know that no suspicion will come to them, so they will do what they want. So again, as I said, I'm just finding these things interesting. I throw them out here in these conversations. So anybody that can make sense of them should please do so, and just like break it down for the rest of us that are not quite as knowledgeable, so that, these seemingly disconnected and disjointed events and activities and interests and organizations can begin to make sense, so that we know what the plan for the future, or at least what we are planning for. Let's know what is possibly going to come next. Thank you.
Thank you, Godson. And just to put it out there, because it's important we notify you on this. So a platform called Njenje Media, they are the audience. They're streaming this conversation live on YouTube, right? So we want to notify everyone so that you can be aware. Right. So, and then Godson, thank you for your contribution. I just have a set of questions, right? Because again, this conversation is quite broad, and you basically did a good job trying to analyze the various non-state actors in different parts of the country who have taken up arms, whether against the people or against the government or against the state, whichever way you want to define it, right? And they are either claiming territory or they're making demands and trying to enforce their will against what the state or the public occupying any of those particular regions may desire. Now, if you square this against one of the major requirements of any government is that it must be able to maintain and demonstrate monopoly on violence, which means that the government must retain the ability to use physical force. which means that all of us put our trust in the government to protect us from any sort of physical harm, and that we also expect that the government can also enforce physical harm when it's necessary to protect the people or to maintain peace and order in the country. It looks to me like the Nigerian government is gradually losing this ability or has lost it. So now, the question now is, what implication does this mean for the Nigerian government as an entity, especially when it wants to protect legitimacy to the people? And I ask this question because, I mean, one of the main election mantra across for like since 1999 in the country is that most candidates will come and say, vote for me and I will protect you, right? And the reason why we submit to the government's authority, again, is also because we expect that the government will protect us. The reason I will not go out on the streets to buy a gun, right, and then when anyone offends me, I'll shoot the person, is because I expect the government to protect me. And when my rights are violated, I also expect the government to give me justice. Now, when these elements are absent in any country, what implications does that have for democracy in such a country and also for the government's legitimacy itself?
The implications are quite dire, to be quite honest. I'm sorry I'm taking the time, so it's quite busy. So I apologize for how it may sound. As I said, the implications are quite dire, right, for any government that seeks to impose, well, not seeks to impose, seeks to assert, right, its authority and again its monopoly on violence within its borders, right? Because the more the government continues to lose that legitimacy in itself and in the eyes of its citizens, the more you find a rise of one, non-state actors that, could include any number of bodies and have any number of intentions, right? And number two, you will continue to have this decrease or the decrement of public trust, right? And trust in the ability of the state to perform its functions, which means that more and more people will start to look at alternative means, right, of securing themselves, which could mean a whole lot of things, right? And aside that, it would also begin to, this one is not even begin to, as it stands, we're already seeing a situation where there are clamors for the dissolution of the current entity of the country, right? And that is still born from a number of these things. A situation where people are beginning to look at the government, which in the eyes of most people is a representation of the state itself as being a failure. So they are looking at the government as failed. So in their eyes, the state itself has failed, even though they are two different entities. But still, for most people, they are one and the same. And so in the eyes of people, if these two things have failed, then it means that there is no need to continue for things to continue to run as they are. And because people have lost faith in the state itself, they do not feel like, when you lose faith in something, your belief in its existence begins to erode. Think of a Christian that becomes an atheist, right? In their eyes, like once they used to believe that, this supreme deity does exist, and then they fail to believe it anymore. So in their eyes, that existence is gone. And in the eyes of people, they are beginning to look at the state as a failure, and meaning for them that the state should not exist. It's not valid anymore. Which is why the way the government handles these issues becomes very, very important. Because, as I said, the more the government continues to lose that monopoly of violence and leaves room for non-state actors, which typically, aside from the likes of Boko Haram, right, and the bandits that we're looking at, there are other non-state actors, basically demagogues, who just come up and say the right things and pull a following to themselves. And they could have, whether it's good intentions or horrible intentions, nobody really knows and nobody really cares, because at the end of the day, they are standing in the eyes of the people for what the government should be. And across the country, these people are beginning to rise up. So now the government's problem is no longer just one entity now. It's fighting on several fronts. And the longer it keeps allowing this vacuum to exist, the more others will begin to rise up. And the more others rise up, we know where that will end up now. We see other countries across Africa where you have so many different factions and so many different bodies fighting. So the violence becomes a daily reality for everybody, no longer just people living in remote areas. Because now everybody feels like they have a good shot, right, at grabbing whatever they can. So yeah, I feel like that has very dire implications. And the sooner the government arrests this situation, the better it is, not just for the Nigerian government, but for the Nigerian state itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Godson. Doctor, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Please contribute.
I'm actually here to listen. I kind of really want to stay away from contributing to, Nigeria's issues and politics and whatnot on Clubhouse. So I'm here to listen.
We demand your contribution, Doctor.
No, I'll listen for now. Let others go. I'll probably say something later.
S, are you there? S. Okay, what of A? A, Adewale, are you there? Rotam, I actually have a question for you. I don't know if you're still with us here. Rotam. Anyway, if you're just joining us, guys, this is Knights and Cardinals. It's a platform where we analyze social political issues, and we are not biased at all in terms of our positioning. We don't have any fixed position on any matter. In fact, we welcome a multitude of opinions and diverse perspectives, because at the end of the day, we believe that in achieving solutions, collective solutions or individual solutions to the many problems that afflict Nigeria, we need as many opinions as we can get. And then people also need to be able to express themselves and speak honestly on how they view things going on in the country, and particularly how it affects them, whether as a group or as individuals. So we welcome all manner of all kinds of opinions.
Let me ask you a question, P, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
So what's your take on everything? I just want to know your stance. I don't think I've heard you say that before, so that's why I'm asking. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm moderating the conversation, so I'm trying to avoid accusations of bias.
I think you should. I mean, it's a relatively...
Yeah, no, P, you can actually... No, you can actually give your opinion, but just...
Okay. Well, if you want to join let me just say this. If you want to join the conversation, you want to come up on stage, please raise your hand and then we'll welcome you on stage, right? We want to take as many contributions as we can. So the question, Doctor, my personal opinion on all of this, right? I think that it's just, this is just all indication of how feckless the Nigerian state has become, right? So when an individual says that if you declare a group that has inflicted and displayed several acts of terrorism on the Nigerian state, if you declare such a group, then you risk, losing the unity of the country, or perhaps you risk compounding the problem. In which case, because Gumi actually made a threat, he issued a threat to the Nigerian state, saying that if you declare them a terrorist group, particularly of Islamic extraction, what that would mean is that Islamic groups would then now take ownership of the bandit groups. And then, of course, it's easier for those Islamic groups. This is like a direct quotation of Gumi now. He says it is easier to mobilize and attract young people, particularly in the north, under the banner of Allahu Akbar and AK-47 to fight a secular, immoral state, right? So it's a direct threat that if you declare those people a terrorist group, especially of Islamic extraction, you're basically going to expand their recruitment pool, right? And such threats can only matter to any state or government when such a government has lost the ability, to protect the people against these kind of aggressions. And that's the reality of the Nigerian state across the country, not just in the north. Because, again, you look at the southeast, for instance, that's a case where a group of people are declaring sit-at-homes, right? Where individuals in those states cannot exercise their rights to freedom of movement, right? So these people are not elected, they're not the government, but they can enforce, movement restrictions on any day they arbitrarily choose, and nobody dares to violate or to challenge, this situation. You go to the north as well. We have places like Zamfara, where bandits are obtaining taxes from farmers so they can harvest their farmlands, right? And then you also go to some places in the south, where you have militant groups, where they are the government and the law unto themselves. So my view is that the Nigerian state has disintegrated, right? And which is why it makes for a moot point when people are talking about, oh, let's keep Nigeria one, the Nigerian government must prevail. What you have in reality is a country in tatters, right? So there are different authorities wherever you live in the country. And so while we're focusing on two specific threats, which was coup d'etat and also the civil war, right? The country was basically, ebbing away and losing blood across several units in the country. Because if you look at since 1970, the Nigerian government focused on two specific threats, and that was what the security architecture was built to tackle. And it's a civil war and also coup d'etat, which is why you look at the Nigerian army and the Nigerian police, they dispatch their best members to protect the tiny 1% of the Nigerian population, which are those who find themselves in position of power and also in public office. They don't care about the ordinary Nigerian people. And so when that is the case, people will look on to other people for protection and support. So we see the Nigerian state disintegrating. The government can no longer enforce its will. And the clearest indication of this was the report last week on the Wall Street Journal that the Nigerian government paid $50,000 to a bandit group, in quotes, right, for them to relinquish, ammunition that could target planes so that the president could fly safely. Now, people did not carefully unpack what this signifies, right? Imagine the highest body of the Nigerian authority having to bribe a criminal group in the country to allow the president the right of passage, right? The president himself can no longer travel safely in any part of in some parts of the country. He has to bribe terrorists so that he can guarantee safe passage. So that for me is the clearest indication of what the Nigerian government is now and what the Nigerian country as a state also represents. And so we can make all of the academic arguments here as long as we want. Oh, let's keep Nigeria this, let's keep Nigeria that. Your idea of what is or what should be, does not in any way affect what it is. And the reality of the Nigerian country that it has disintegrated and the government can no longer enforce its will. So I honestly don't know, where to go from here. But I think I should just stop here. Doctor, I hope I answered the question.
Okay, and just to add to that, so the Nigerian government is in effect disintegrating the country with their policies and the nepotism and the actions that they're taking. But then again, they are finding this unity at all cost mantra. It doesn't make any sense. It's like you continue to beat a child and then the child is crying and then you continue to beat the child again for crying. Where's that done? So like you said too, I also don't know where to go from here. Anyway, yeah, I just thought to add that to what you said.
It's really funny because this statement from Gumi, you look at the Terrorism Act, right? And you look at all of the definition. It's very clear that the bandits or whoever they are a terrorist group and that Gumi himself is a sympathizer. I remember at the time that Gumi went to the forest to hold meetings with these bandit groups, right? And when he came out, let me quote him directly. He said, "My interaction with the bandits have been easy because I always go through the door. So don't be surprised. If you're nice to him, if you're ready to listen to him, if you're trying to understand his problem, if you put your legs in his own shoes, he will listen to you." Now, he's referring to bandits, right? So he's saying that we should call bandits to a very nice meeting, give them tea and biscuits, and talk to them about what their problems are and why they decided to carry gun and kill people and kidnap people and cause terror. So tomorrow, if I'm also unhappy because I don't have a job or I'm not satisfied, I can also go and procure guns from the market, kill people and cause, wreak havoc on the country. And then the government will call me to also a nice, pleasant meeting, have dinner with me, and then ask me what my problems are, and then put themselves in my shoes and also pay me a ransom for doing a good job, well done. That's the kind of country that we're building, and we expect people to invest their hopes in Nigeria. It's a joke. It's a joke. Anyway, doctor, now that I've given you my opinion, I'm also demanding yours.
Yeah, I heard everything, and I totally agree with you. You know, I've always said that the failure of the Nigerian, government, or the failure of leadership has given rise to a lot of things, terrorism, and also, the current state of crisis. And in fact, the emergence of all the demagogues and ideologues that we're seeing today, and including the agitation for separation, self-determination. I'm just really keen on, like, I'm watching. I really want to know how this will pan out, right? Because I believe this is a path towards implosion, right? I've always argued that the Nigerian state does not have the rudiments for building a very strong, should I say democracy? I don't know, a strong state, basically. The institutions are weak, the leaders are corrupt and incompetent, and then we have a patron-client system, not just in our political system, but even the economic process too, or the economic context. So it's a lot of there's a lot to deal with, and I just don't know whether any state historically has ever survived all these insurmountable issues. I really don't know. I mean, it will take a miracle, which I really don't believe in, but it will take a miracle for Nigeria to survive. Just recently, I think some hours ago, on LinkedIn, someone posted something about the budget of Angola compared to the budget of Nigeria. And so Angola is like 33 million population-wise. The budget is about, I really don't want to quote the wrong figures. I kind of just saw it, and I left quickly. But, the point is, Angola has a bigger budget than Nigeria. Nigeria is 200 million. Angola is 30 million, right? But then it's crazy how the population is managed without mega a budget, and then Angola, which is a smaller population, has that huge budget, and that's the thing. You get to wonder what exactly is the vision of the leaders of this country. What are they? What do we do with our resources? What do we do with the oil and everything? Like, there's just so many questions. And honestly, I at this point, I really don't even know if there will be answers. And in my own, so I'm still pretty much about, self-determination. I like agitation for self-determination. But my fear with that is also, there's also that lack of, like a cohesive unit, right? And then also there is no structure, there is no organization. Yesterday, when I was opining, right, and there were a lot of emotional reactions to it, my shift in opinion was informed by several things, including even people I spoke to, and including the experience I've had, even at the background, right? And so I'll give you an instance, just like an instance. I remember having that, so it was a group and we're having a chat, and it was about the kind of governance structure, a proposed governance structure for a new nation. And I was of the opinion that, we should go the Republican way. So meaning that there won't be the heads, so you won't have, monarchy as monarchy voted in this new nation. The idea that kings would still be the heads of state or whatever, to me, is anachronistic. In a modern society, the people should hold the power, and then the power should be used in electing their representatives, and those representatives are given the mandate to, represent the interests of the people. So Nigeria as it is a federal republic. And I think that's the way to go in this modern society. But, people were still of the opinion that they want to keep their traditional institutions. And then I was like, well, not just me, some other people too share the same view. Traditional institutions are kind of really not progressive anymore. The idea that you can inherit power and then your power is just absolute. And even if it's constitutional, the point is that the people do not have a say in the election or selection of who becomes the head of the state, right? So for me, that does not even align with the principle of a citizen-centered society or a people-centric society. So basically, that was just there was just so much. So it was that particular debate was an indication of how disconnected we are and how disjointed we are as a unit too. So these are the things that made me realize that, look, we need to first of all organize and be well structured. And that would also mean infiltrating and dominating the power structures within your current system, right? So that could also, it could apply to those who also want to, effect change. So if you are also a pro-Nigeria person and you are not, obviously you are dissatisfied with the way the system is, for you to change the system, you would have to, again, dominate the power structures within the system so that you can influence the change. Because if you keep being reactive or you are just passive, the people that are there will always recycle themselves and nothing will change. So it's the same logic. So if you also want we want, a referendum, for instance, and you know that the people that are currently there are those who are going to be happy to kill you the minute you even think or conceive the idea of leaving, doesn't it make sense for you to supplant them or even try and take over the power structures or whatever, so that you can then use that, authority, the legitimate authority, to influence the decisions you want? But that's just my take, and it's open to criticism. But yeah, I think I'm sorry for rambling here and there, but just saying several things that I've thought about since yesterday, this morning, and all that, since I've been listening to you guys. So I don't know, man. I think, it's tiring. Just to land my plane. So this current issue of Gumi, I'm not even surprised, because Gumi has always been. If you dig deep into the story of Sharia, the Islam movement, the role they played politically in the North, how they, imagine a situation where in the 70s, the Muslim elite in the North began to infiltrate political parties. So a party like MPN, right, was made up of two factions. So you had the conservative faction, which was actually dominated by the northern Muslim elite, and then the other faction was mainly from like the southern part. Now the northern faction were the ones that were really, really, really powerful, and they kind of paved the way for the emergence of PDP, right, and also the emergence of the adoption of Sharia in the Fourth Republic, during the Obasanjo era, right? And you could see how they also worked tirelessly for decades to infiltrate the power structures, political parties, and then they got what they wanted. So what is happening right now is just a consequence of the fundamentalism and extremism that all these elites have always propagated, within that particular region for political reasons, the bandits for me are not bandits. They are actually terrorists. They've always been terrorists, and they know who their elites and their patrons are. And I'm not even shy to say that Buhari has definitely, I mean, in 2001, was it 2001? This man literally said, there's an interview you could Google you could check on Google. I think it was Vanguard, one of these popular newspapers. And he gave an interview where he said that he believes firmly that Sharia should be implemented in Nigeria. And you can't disconnect that from, the Boko Haram thingy where they said Buhari is a spokesperson. And then you have, a situation in 2015 where, because of, and this is not, how should I put this? It's not factual, but it's something that you could say, sometimes there are things that that are true, but because you don't really have the evidence to put forward to sort of substantiate them. But you kind of know that, yeah, this is definitely the case. I don't know if that makes sense, but so let me just say. So in 2015, there were so many. There were so many plans that were put in place to ensure that if Jonathan retains power, there could be, a situation where, things will go crazy, right? And certain elements began to work towards ensuring that plan was somehow, solid and kept as plan B. The plan A obviously was to win. The plan B was to disrupt things. And I think, the plan B, right, was basically forging alliances with certain groups, not just in the north, but also in countries like Mali and Niger. And some of these groups were promised certain things. There were certain rewards that they were, promised. Like, okay, if you come and we do this, you help us do that, blah blah. You get this and that. And yeah, so the plan A worked, which is they won. And then the elements that were recruited are now kind of going on rampage, and they've really they're going on rampage right now, and their excesses cannot be curtailed any longer. And obviously, it's not going to be easy for the same people that kind of sponsored their emergence in Nigeria to just clamp down on them, because that could then, lead to so many other things, including revealing the actual truth or the actual role of the people in government in the emergence of these groups. So I think that kind of really then explains why he's treating them with kid's gloves and basically trying to pamper them, right? I mean, look at it. Think about it. So the president, the Grand Commander, in chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, blah blah blah, had to pay bandits in quotes. For what? Like, are you saying that you can't clamp down on these guys, right? And then you think about Gumi too and how he is able to gain access to them, right? You think about what the utterances of a lot of other elites in the north, whether Mieti Allah or El Rufai, all these guys, what they say about these bandits, almost as if they are trying to justify their atrocities, the atrocities that are committed by these guys. Like, they're just angry. It's just because they're economically depressed or something. The bandits are also humans. They are just. So you think about these things, and you connect it to the theory of that theory I just posed in terms of the theory I just posited in terms of these groups, being recruited by the same elements from other countries for election purposes. It can be far-fetched, but it's just a theory. It's not, or you could say, a hypothesis. I don't know, but it's not a fact because I don't have evidence for it. But I don't know. I just firmly believe that there could be some veracity to it. But yeah, again, sorry for rambling. I just thought I should share that. Thanks.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, all right. Sorry, my connection signal went off for a minute. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your contribution. Indeed, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to Nigeria, security, banditry, and also Minister Sheikh Gumi. Babalawo, you wanted to say something? Babalawo, are you there?
I'll pass for now.
Okay, let me just add something to what Doctor said towards the beginning of his submission. And for me, it was a lot for me to reflect on yesterday because within ourselves, just within this small space, we are not even able to agree to disagree. So even, yes, I'm for self-determination, but then do I want to move from one tyranny to another? Those are valid questions. And you see, in as much as, okay, we want everybody, the different regions want to be able to decide their state of affairs and they want to go their own ways. But that's actually a minor issue compared to what happens after that. So Nigeria has assets, even though more debt, but yes, it has debt as well. Who takes up the debt that Nigeria has, incurred over the last years? What do we do with our resources? Those are fundamental issues that you cannot address without the government. It's not possible. So even if, God forbid, we were to go to war today, we will still have to engage these people. We will still have to sit down with them to say, this is where we are. What do we do with our passport? Those are actually serious conversations that will have to happen. But like I said, even among ourselves, we cannot even agree to disagree. Everybody with his own ego. It's my way or the highway. If you're not saying this, then you're an enemy. It actually makes me sick, to be honest. It really, really does make me sick. And people that, I've over the last few months, I have thought in a certain way. I'm also now beginning to question them that I don't need to even have gone to university to know that there are serious issues here that we need to. Can we just put our differences aside for a minute? What are the meeting points? Why don't we disagree? Okay, this is my position. This is your position. Let's debate it. Let's debate it within ourselves and who has where's the superior argument? And superior argument should eventually take the day. But my way, so at the end of the day, maybe we are who we are because at the end, yes, I understand that certain people have created this special purpose vehicle within themselves and they've made Nigeria their own business for their own affairs and for the affairs of their family. But even amongst ourselves, is it because we have a bad government? That is why amongst ourselves we cannot even be civil towards each other and think, because yes, I understand that our education is flawed, but even people that don't even live in Nigeria, when they talk, you ask yourself, are these people thinking? I just wanted to contribute to the first part of the submissions of Dr. Adedapo, and like I said before, I honestly don't know where to go from here, unless all of us should just jackpot or sell the country to China last, maybe.
Okay.
Why China? Why not the US or Canada?
Let me add to that. You see, Talani, thank you for that contribution. You see, I had to think about everything after I logged off the app yesterday. Like, what really just happened? Because, I mean, this was about what to do to achieve self-determination. So you have a group of people who believe that there should be resistance or people shouldn't vote in elections. And then you have those of us who are saying, well, you kind of really still have to engage the political process because you cannot. So if you, unless you are saying you don't understand your political context and the nexus between, the constitution and also, the role that political actors will play in, giving you referendum, and also even international law, which plays a role in how you get your self-determination. So, like, if you understand all these things and you realize that at the end of the day, you still have to really do a referendum anyways. Doesn't it make sense for you to start looking for ways to get into that particular system, put your people in those positions, so that they will, they'll be the ones to argue for your case, right? And then possibly get referendum. If it's now, I don't know how it will be, maybe included in the constitution once it's reformed or whatever. But that should be the thinking, right? But then, the insistence that you are going to get some people to go and resist and all that. But that aside, for me, I think people just kind of estimate their influence, and I think the app itself, so you come to Clubhouse, you join, groups. There's a community. You have this sense of belonging there, right? And then you guys adopt there's also the group think, and then you guys adopt a position, and you feel like you cannot separate yourself from the identity of the group. You can't separate yourself from the position the group has taken. So it's like you derive meaning, right, through your participation in the group and also in the position that has been adopted by the group. Now, once there is an opposing view, right, or an opposing group to what you've considered to be part of you, then it could start making you feel like you're being attacked, right? And that's what I just sensed. Like, okay, it seems like these people cannot separate themselves from even what they think is right, like what they've adopted as their official position. They see themselves in the ideology itself. They see themselves in the movement. Or I wouldn't even say the movement, in the community that they've created for themselves on Clubhouse. And, it's like, if you criticize our ideas, we are going to deal with you. Like, that's the way it is now, right? But then, one thing I wish I had said yesterday was, something I later discussed with Olabode. Now, for me, I don't think, the last time I checked, there was no, like, Yoruba people did not converge anywhere, right, to adopt an official position. Like, I don't think they said, you know what, we, the Yoruba people of Southwest Nigeria, or we, the Yoruba people all over the world, we have decided that we are going to stop our people from voting in elections, right? I didn't get the memo. So why will anybody think that their own idea is the default one? And if you, Tolani or Dapo, now comes with a different position, then you are betraying the entire Yoruba race. I was astonished. I'm still astonished. Like, who told you that your idea of resistance is the official position, or even the movement itself? Because the movement is bigger than Clubhouse. There are people who are not on Clubhouse that I have met who believe firmly in self-determination, and they are Yoruba people. And those ones, if you ask them, they will have different opinions about how to achieve self-determination. So who are you to think that your idea of resistance it supersedes every other idea out there? And that if I'm saying, look, I'm for self-determination, but I don't believe in violence or resistance or whatever, then I'm like, oh, the saboteur or something. Like, who told you you are the general or the marshal of this movement? And you could see that in a lot of characters on this app. And like I said, I think it's just a situation of people just boosting their ego, through their participation in these communities. And it's a self-centered thing, actually. So, but I've decided not to pay anybody any mind. I firmly believe in what I believe in. And I also know that the minute you believe an idea cannot be criticized, then that idea controls you, right? An idea is just an idea. You should separate yourself, the self, from the idea, so that you can put it up to scrutiny. But if you are saying it's part of you and it feeds your ego, obviously, then that's a path towards extremism, right? So, yeah.
Thank you, Doctor, for your contribution. And indeed, I think that the central message here is that we should allow for diverse opinions and views. Nobody should claim to have a monopoly of truth or the right approach or the right or the best way, right? People are going to see things differently. People are going to hold different opinions, especially when it relates to things that affects them personally, right? Yoruba will say that Uboa Alisun. So it's always good to be inclusive in your approach and not necessarily quick to dispense labels to people who merely just have a different opinion from yours. Because at the end of the day, we're social animals, right? It means that we'll perceive things differently. We'll also see things from different perspectives. And that's why I think Knights and Cardinals is very, very deliberate in, promoting inclusiveness. It's a platform for multitude of opinions and different perspectives. Everyone can air their views, and then whoever can persuade the majority, can have the day. So, Bala, are you ready to make a contribution now? Bala, or are you still talking with the gods? Your name is actually quite interesting.
Hello?
Yeah, Bala, welcome.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Good afternoon from Lagos, Nigeria. But please go ahead with your contribution.
So, I just want us to take a breather and look at things from the perspective of the fact that we have an imminent threat to our race. And if we are not careful, our race is going to be extinct. This has happened before too,
Sorry, which race is that? The human race?
No, Yoruba race.
Okay.
So, and I'm saying Yoruba race because I'm a Yoruba man and I'm speaking as a Yoruba man. And I know a lot of other people have this same situation going on. I think the only people that don't really feel, maybe they also feel it anyway, the fire, the heat that's going on in Nigeria now is the Fulani people, which, of course, if you talk to some Fulani, they'll say, yeah, we feel it too, because the ones that are giving us the bad name is the bad ones among us. Because recently I listened to a conference of, I think, Meati Ala group, and they were saying they're going to start fishing out all the bad eggs among them. So now, let's look at Yoruba as a nation. And the fact that Yoruba has existed before Nigeria even started. That is to tell you that we are smart people, we are very understanding, we cooperate among ourselves, and we know how to run our own affairs. So I don't want us to think like, oh, the moment that Yoruba gain independence from Nigeria, we're going to have the same problem. I don't believe in that. And the reason why I don't believe in that is because if I have an argument with my brother, the way my brother is going to react to me is different from if it's somebody else from outside, that doesn't even know who I am. So before now, nobody can ever imagine that we're having people being killed every single day, and Nigerian government is going to give them money just for them to stop. Okay? But we have other people that say we want to separate from this country, and the whole power of government is being, thrown at them, trying to kill them and throw them in jail. So we have to look at Nigerian government at this point as the enemy of itself. or ourselves, because everybody right now, right from the middle belt down to southeast, everybody's crying that they want to go. And self-determination is not a crime. Okay? We all know that. And Nigerian government knows that. So why are they making it a crime? So this is just to tell us that
I think Babalao has some other concerns to attend to. Young, you came up. You want to make a contribution? Young, are you there? Young elder. Are you there?
Hello?
Okay, Babalao, you're back. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my work. So I have to attend something real quick. So I just want us to understand that if we keep putting ourselves in this fear that, oh, if we break away from Nigeria, we're going to suffer. Look, that is what the present government wants us to feel. Okay? Because of recent, I was 2 or 3 days ago, I was reading a news article that was saying Namalami was equating Sunday Igboho, linking him to terrorism, sponsoring Boko Haram, right? Now, Boko Haram has not been proscribed as a terrorist organization so far, yet. But you are saying somebody giving them money is connected to, terrorism. That we can all see the double standard here. So the more we all keep thinking, we're overthinking this whole self-determination thing. We're overthinking it. And that is what the government wants us to think. That is how they want us to feel. That is what they want us to do. So that the more we keep thinking about how we're going to survive, it's going to be difficult for us to even achieve anything. And another thing is, I understand somebody, I think it's the doctor that said, Yoruba has not sat nowhere to come around and say, oh, we want to do this. That's not going to happen, okay? Because look at the politicians. How many politicians has approached you and say, vote for me, okay? But when it comes to election, you wake up one day and see somebody being elected. Even somebody you know is not the right person to be elected. It doesn't matter if you vote or not. So I want us to chill, take a breather, and start thinking about, do you want to continue to suffer as a Nigerian? And anywhere you go, everybody look at you in different ways? Or you want to reset your life? Because having a self-determination opportunity is like we want to reset our future. We want to bring everything back to status quo and say, look, I don't like what's going on with my life right now. Okay, and I want to change. And I know change is difficult. Change is something that is so everybody resists change. I know, but if we don't sit back and look at what benefit is going to come from change, we're all going to continue to suffer. Okay, now look at the resources in Nigeria. I'm from Lagos, right? Look at the resources that is going out of Lagos, and look at how little benefit the people of Lagos get from the resources that they contribute to the federal government. And this happened to every southern state and the eastern state. Now, look at Zamfara of recent. I was watching a video when the governor of Zamfara said he made a video of the gold reserve for the state, and he said it belongs to his state. Let one southern state don't do that, or a southern governor do that. It's going to be war with this government, because they're going to see it differently. Because if you're getting all these resources from Zamfara, and you're telling me it belongs to your state, okay, so why is the port of Lagos not, the resources don't belong to our state? Why are we fighting over VAT? So you can see all the double standard in Nigerian government. And the more we keep thinking about, what's going to happen to us when we separate, that is not a problem. That is not. We have intelligent youths. We have smart people among our, in our race that can run the affair of our region without any problem. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm very confident with that. I'm telling you. So I want us to continue to think about how we can get away from all this suffering that we're going through right now, than thinking about what is going to happen after that. Okay? It's easy for us to have a conference of all the Yorubas. Everybody going to be there. But tell me, you want to tell me if you call a conference of Yoruba right now, DSS is not going to swarm the place and arrest everybody? So that is why you see a lot of politicians are jumping into the bandwagon and supporting APC because of the fear. Some of them are afraid of what's going to happen to their political, future, and some of them because of the corruption. They want to get their own share and move on. So all these things is all designed to make us fail. And if we internalize failure, we're going to fail. No matter how much strength you have, if you internalize failure, you're going to continue to fail us, no matter how powerful or how strategic you can be. If you're scared of taking that bold step and say, no, we don't want to do this anymore. Because for me, as a Yoruba man, every single time I open my phone, I look at all this news, I feel so sad that I belong to Nigeria. And the only way possible right now is to get away, have a self-determination. Let every region, just like it was before the independence, every region be on their own. Then we can now sit down and talk. If we're going to come back to be in Nigeria, let's give ourselves that choice. Let us not kill ourselves before we even see the benefit of being, alone, separated from Nigeria. Because there are so many benefits that we can gain from being, managing our own affairs compared to let somebody else manage our affairs. Because these people are not even educated. They don't even know what policies mean. When you make a policy or you make a law and you go against the same law, you building yourself, the whole system is going to fail. Nigeria's system has already failed a long time ago. Buhari is just, this government, let me not use this name. Buhari, the government at this point is just like marking time, just waiting for his time to be done, that he then he can leave.
Okay.
So I want to conclude and say that I want to relax and chill. Look at the good side being on our own and managing our own affairs.
Thank you, Babalawo, Babayo.
Do you mind if I just say something quickly? Because I think Babalawo respectfully he missed the argument. Where the argument is that's not what we have said. What we're saying is it's not whether or not we want self-determination or because we are afraid of what will happen if we get Yoruba nation. That's not the argument. The argument is let me because you make it simplistic, like, we don't know the issue of Nigeria, and then you gave an example of the fact that we're sharing VAT, and you mentioned the issue of the mines and minerals. Yes, I agree with you. Mines and minerals is in the exclusive list. It's also confirmed in Section 44 of the Constitution, and this is the section that expropriates the people of the Niger Delta of their natural resources. And we know, for me, this is actually the most insensitive part of the Constitution for me. We know these issues, what we are saying. So when we talk about what will happen after balkanization, It's not that we are afraid that we won't have our policies. No, we're saying that as of today, Nigeria is recognized as a sovereign state. Yoruba nation is not. Nigeria has assets and liabilities. So if the different regions go their separate way, there are so many. It's like you break down a whole structure. We have to talk about what we do with all those structures. Who takes what? Who takes the assets? Who takes the liabilities? Do you get? What do we do with our passport? How do we engage international organizations to start to recognize Yoruba nation or Igbo nation? Those are what we're talking about. And fundamentally, and which is where the debate is, that at the end of the day, you still have to engage these people that your international organizations already recognize. So we cannot have Yoruba or Igbo nation without them. That is the argument, not that people are afraid of self-determination. Even a 2-year-old, you just need to sit him down and explain the issues of Nigeria with him. And he will understand it, because they are basic fun. People are just asking to live. People are dying every day. The economy is going to the dogs. People are running away. So that's not the argument. The argument is not fear of Yoruba nation. Absolutely not. The argument is, how do we get Yoruba nation? That's the argument. So I just want to make that clear before other people go. Thank you.
Okay, let me react. So,
okay, Babalawo, please make it quick, because I think God also wants to contribute to the discussion.
Okay. So listen, everything that Yoruba nation is doing right now, right, is all mapped out, and it's all done in the proper way according to the law. Okay, and that is the reason why you don't see anybody that call himself Yoruba nation at this point acting like the IPOB is doing, because we have policy, we have procedures that we have to follow, and that's what we're doing right now. Okay, that's the reason why at this point, at this level of our struggle, is the request for a referendum. All right. So if these people that have been working tirelessly bring us to this point where we're talking about referendum, right? So that is a step. So after referendum, all the steps are going to follow. And at that point, whatever debt Nigeria has, or whatever else that is of general value or of interest for the Nigerian nation is going to be discussed too. But we need to take this
one step at a time.
I'm
so sorry to interject. Let me just ask you a question so that we can understand each other. Do you agree that me, Tolani, or anybody on Clubhouse cannot give you a referendum? Do you agree that it's the government that will give you a referendum? Do you agree to that?
And that is the reason why Yoruba nation went through the United Nations. Okay? I know Nigerian nation is not going to ever give you referendum, because the politicians that we have right now, they are enjoying from what Nigeria is at this point, and they will never let it happen. Okay, that is the reason why Yoruba nation had to turn to United Nations, because it is believed that if the United Nations is interested in it and they make it happen, they want to make it happen, it will happen. But Nigeria as a country is not going to make it happen. This present government is not going to make it happen. I just want us to understand that. So it's not about you or me or anybody else on this platform is going to make it happen. No, it's not up to us. It's up to the United Nations to say, okay, these people have suffered enough. We know what their problem is. We see what they are going through. And let's take this step. Then it's going to happen. So I just believe that we haven't got to that point yet where United Nations is going to listen to us or look at what we're doing and say, okay, yes, they deserve it at this point. Maybe there is a saboteur or something. I don't believe in that. I don't know. But I believe that it's going to get to a point where the referendum is going to come. And after referendum, the same United Nations that approve and help us get referendum, they're going to be involved in the next step. And that is the reason why the leadership of Yoruba Nation keep, preaching to people that we don't want to fight the government of Nigeria, because we're going to lose. That's why they're saying we're not going to shed no blood. So going through the proper channel is what they're doing right now, and that is what is going to get us where we're going. It's not you or me. I want us to get that clear.
Okay, P, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I think this is actually important that we actually break these things down. I have 2 questions for you. My first question is, if you, Babalawo, you were in the National Assembly or you were the president today, would you give people, if as of today, would you listen to the cries of the Nigerians and the decisions of Nigeria and give a referendum? That's my first question to you. My second question to you is, please walk us through how the United Nations would give you a referendum. Thank you.
Okay, I'm in politics right now. Because I'm human also, I'm not going to let it happen. You know why? Because everything I'm enjoying as a governor or as a chairman or anybody in politics as a senator is going to be out. I'm going to lose all those things, and it's not going to happen. That is the reason why I'm telling you that the present Nigerian politicians are not going to be. They are not the one that's going to make your referendum happen. Now, when you talk about how United Nations is going to give us a referendum, it's very simple. If they bring our issue to the out, they will appoint the process. They will make the process happen. They will appoint how the election is going to be done, how everything is going to be done, and they will have soldiers on the ground to monitor and make sure. And they have international monitoring groups are going to come also. So it's not just something that one person or just a few people do. If United Nations is interested in it, they have their own policy, they have their procedures, and they're going to do it. It's not the Nigerian politicians. It's not going to be INEC that's going to be. INEC is not going to be involved at all. I want you to look that up. So it's not, when you come talk of the referendum, it's going to be because at the point where everybody knows that Nigerian government is fault. It's not right. So there's so much corruption. So doing anything that has to do with referendum, they're not going to give it it's not going to give the responsibility of Nigerian government to carry out. It's going to be the United Nations that's going to physically have boots on the ground to make sure it happens. And international observers and monitoring groups are going to also be involved. So that is how it's going to happen. So I don't know what else you want me to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Babalawo. I was going to ask, if you can provide examples of the UN successfully intervening between contentions between different constituent parts of the country and also granting, a self-determinant group the right to self-determination. But before we go to that, I think Godson has a contribution, so we'll just hear from Godson and then we can proceed with the question. Or Bola Bango, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, please go ahead. I mean, you haven't spoken before, so please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. My question, I think, is related to the question you just asked. Maybe Chelani has asked a question that is similar. Anybody can answer the question, either Babala or Chelani or you. So my question is, what will make United Nations interested in enforcing or advising Nigeria to conduct a referendum in Nigeria? Did you get the question?
Babalawo, did you understand the question? Or do you understand the question?
I'm busy right now.
Oh, okay. Babalawo says he's busy right now. Godson, do you think you can answer the question?
Oh no, I was not going for the question. I was just going to something else entirely because
okay.
I'm not sure the UN would ever do that directly, right? I don't think I can think of any scenarios where the United Nations has stepped in to unilaterally force any nation into taking action, right? They can pressure the leadership of a nation, right? They can write the leadership, they can pass resolutions, but they cannot force any nation to hold a referendum, as far as I know, and as far as history serves me right. So I don't think there is any scenario where that has happened. I wanted to address something not really along those lines, but it would still end up there, and that's to Cholani's point. So what I wanted to say was...
Sorry, God, before you go on, I have a follow-up question to my question. I don't know.
Yeah, please.
You've answered the question in a way, and I don't expect you to actually tell me categorically, because like you said, there's no precedent. So if this doesn't happen, since there's no precedent, since United Nations does not have the power or the political will to force any nation to conduct a referendum, what is the strategy of Yoruba Nation in ensuring that United Nations, enforce Nigeria Yoruba Nation forces Nigerians and to consider conducting a referendum? This question is for anybody here. People in the audience can actually, also come on board and answer. Thank you.
That's a very tough question, to be quite honest. To force someone's hand, you need to have leverage, right? And the question is, does any part of the country outside of the north, because we have come to the sort of consensus that on the balance of things, the north holds power. In fact, this is not even a consensus issue. It's just facts, because if you are talking about voting on anything in the National Assembly, the north as a bloc, should they choose to act as a bloc, would always, in a simple majority, of course, we know that voting on bills is not usually a simple majority matter, but still, should the north decide not to vote in favor of anything, it will not pass. So it's practically impossible to get something of that nature through the National Assembly without, some sort of support from either the north as a bloc or a significant part of the north to make up the numbers that the south will provide. So, some sort of, as I said, you need to have some sort of leverage. So you can't force the hand of the government if you don't have that leverage. And to get that leverage, you need to build certain alliances. Now, the question, of course, is kind of, again, I've not even gotten to why I wasn't flashing my mic, right? But Talani already kind of pointed in the direction, right, that if you cannot force the UN if the UN cannot force the Nigerian government to act in a certain way, that kind of limits the number of options to, either acts of violence, which, it's very doubtful that any act of violence against the Nigerian state will work, because they have the resources, they have the numbers, right? And they have an entire body that's trained for this kind of activity. And then the other option is to participate in the political process. So, and participating in the political process still ties into what I said initially about having leverage, right? Because you are participating in the political process and you don't have the numbers, you don't have the influence, that becomes the kind of moot point. So to now tie the whole thing to the point I was going to make, specifically to Tolani, and I think Doctor has left, the concern that a number of these people that are refusing to participate in the process have is not necessarily that they don't want to, at least for those that I've spoken with, it's not necessarily that they don't want to, or that they don't, that they are resistant to the idea altogether. Again, for those that I've spoken with, some people on this app are different question entirely, but that they do not trust the electoral process in the first place to be able to put their own people, in place. And they are saying that, okay, for you to be able to get the kind of change that you want, or you want to get the outcome that you want, you need to have your people in positions of power, right? All fair and good, all agreed. But to put your people in power, you need to have an electoral system that you can trust, that you trust would if you are able to campaign and you're able to draw your alliances and you're able to pull people together and resources together, you trust that that political process will definitely bring to power the person that you feel would best represent your interests. And that's where the problem lies with these people. They don't trust the Nigerian electoral process. They don't trust the Nigerian political process. So if we are going to pitch this as a solution to them, then we would also have to pitch a solution to that problem to them, or at least pitch a process, right, that builds up to a solution where they can say, okay, you know what, even if the current political process is broken, these are the actions that we can take to fix that. Then we can use that fixed electoral system and fixed political process to now put in power the people that we feel would, make the change that we want or give us the results that we want. So I feel like it might become a bit easier. Now, I'm very familiar with what Olani is talking about when she said some people can be extremely intolerant, and when you don't agree with them, they just make you an enemy, so to speak. So I am very familiar with that. I'm not sure those are the people that this is particularly addressed to, because I don't know that any kind of placation might work. But I'm speaking specifically for those that are on the fence, or those that are that they are appealed to by that position, right? If you can give them like a set of actions or processes that you believe, or would reassure them that, okay, these things are possible. Because as it stands, they believe that it's impossible, number one, to get their people elected, and then number two, it's impossible to fix the electoral and political systems. So we have to show them that possibility that, okay, you know what, there is a realistic chance that there are things that we can do that would fix our political process and our electoral process, so that we can now elect the people that we want that will best serve our interests. So in answer to your question, Bola, as I said, we cannot, if outside of the UN forcing the hand of the government, which I don't think is going to happen, and outside of violence, which most of us don't even want, even people that are clamoring for secession, self-determination, one Nigeria, whatever, I don't think most of them want any kind of violence. So that leaves the political process. And that process, we agree, is broken. And that process needs to be fixed. So in essence, the answer is fix the electoral and political process. That's a good place to start. Thank you.
Sorry, can I respond?
Is that Bola? Yes. But before you respond, I just want to add to what Godson said, which you see, what you said is the reason I asked Babalawo that if we put him in power, would he listen to the agitation of the people? And he said no. So we know that we shouldn't put him in power. But there are people, if you have leaders who have sincerity of mind and purpose, the government is supposed to serve the people, and that was why I asked that question. So yes, that might be a good start, fixing the electoral process. The current government is not going to do it. I think what they have done is, oh my God, who is that? I'm sorry, guys. Okay. So I think what they've tried to do is, because they know that people are complaining about the electoral process, they tried to amend the Electoral Act, but they were trying to be clever by doing it. It's useless. So basically what they're trying to do in long and short is actually even make the electoral process under the control of the executive and the legislative arm again. That's what they have, in a way, stylishly tried to do, which is not what we're asking for. So yes, back to the point. The point is, yes, we do need people who have sincerity of purpose and find a way to chunk out those people that have created the special purpose vehicle that I spoke about initially. Thank you. Bola, I think you can go. Pia, are you still here? I want to lock my office.
Yeah, Tolani, I'm still here. So you can lock your office and then come back.
I'm so sorry, please. I'm sorry. I was talking to you.
Bola, please go ahead.
Okay. So this what Tolani just said is why I believe that we've prayed enough in Nigeria. We pray a lot and everything. about us, prayer and religion. But when people say that let's pray for Nigeria, that's why I don't object, because like if you can get a leader with sincerity of purpose who will achieve a lot, so we can actually use that to change the background and everything that is wrong with Nigeria. So now to the point I was trying to make with all the questions that I was asking. I was listening to. I watched the video just now before I joined this clubhouse session. So it was one man that was talking about how Fulani, they are a minority and they are able to control virtually everywhere in Nigeria. They are able to control the north, the Hausa people. They are able to control Ilorin. Took Ilorin from Afonja. Alimi taking Ilorin from Afonja, and also actually, in quotes, terrorizing the whole country with through Fulani herdsmen. So when you look at it, you see that people actually use force. I'm not trying to. What I'm trying to say is not, okay, we should use force and all that. And you can never imagine what will happen when force is deployed and everything degenerates. So, but if you look around the world, you will see that there's nothing that has been achieved by any country. All these meaningful countries that we have around the world, Western countries, they are built by violence and people's resistances. The people resisting the elite. It happened in the UK. It happened in America, all the Western European countries. And then the British government also was resisted. In Asia and the rest of them. They didn't just give Africa. They didn't just give us independence. It was a resistance that they saw in the East. I mean, in Asia and the Southeast Asia and the rest of it. So now bringing it home, Godson was talking about leverage. There's no group in Nigeria that does not have leverage. Land that you have in itself is a leverage. You just need to lock your cities and your streets, and then it disrupts supply chain. Like for instance, the Middle Belt can just lock their streets and cities, disrupt the flow of vehicles from the north to the south. The young government tomorrow will stand up and say, okay, let's listen to what these people are saying. Southwest, we have the port. We have so many other things that we can leverage on. In 1993, 1994, the whole of Southwest was, what is it called? The riot, the protest. It didn't happen all over the country. It happened mostly in the south, in the southwest, and all the cities were locked on a lockdown. And then the federal government, the powers that be, the northerners, they had to come to the table and say, okay, these knuckleheads, we had to actually compromise and talk to them. So my point is, if you want a Yoruba nation, we need to get the buy-in of the entire Yoruba people in the southwest. Get their buy-in, and then you can, press Nigeria's neck whichever way you want with the number. So that's the point I was trying to make with all the questions, and Godson had already started it by talking about leverage. So you need to actually use leverage. You cannot use force. Though force is not acceptable. So Yoruba nation people, they should be thinking about using leverage, and then the nation history started. Even before they had the land, it's been conceived in their minds, and then they started doing all kinds of things underground before they were actually given the land. So they've been acting as a nation. They've been, doing all kinds of things and pressing people's neck so that they can have that nation. And eventually, the leverage paid off. The leverage will pay off wherever. The Western Europe now is experiencing libertarianism. Trying to push away what I would call coordinated market economy, which the Biden and the rest of them believe in, the Democrats. That is even the main reason the UK is out of Europe, and that is the main reason Europe is going to be European Union is going to break apart. But they are doing this thing on the G. If you read some of the journals, this is all those paid journals. You see the moves some of these people are making. You see how they are selling ideas. You see how they are making companies control government. If you check the election in Honduras, if the incumbent wins, I'm saying this from some authorities. I'm saying this from the mouth of some authorities in the UK that I've heard from. If the incumbent in Honduras wins, that means Biden is not returning. That means what the Democrats and the rest of them are trying to build will fall apart. That means EU might also collapse. So I'm saying it so that we understand that things are done in the background and people use leverage a lot, even because the world has moved away from outright violence, even though it's still used in some places. But to actually get Nigeria to do what you want, you need to press its neck. Though Nigeria is pressing its own neck by with finance, because the debt to revenue ratio is like 90% now. So even if you don't press his neck, if you leave Nigeria for somebody like Buhari for another say term, Nigeria will break apart, because a country that cannot finance itself is going to break apart. So that's my point. So maybe you can help Nigeria to unable to finance itself. So that's my point. I hope all my rantings and emotional topics understood.
To borrow the balance we used when we were in secondary school, you hope you've been able to convince and not to confuse us. Godson, are you there? Godson, are you there? All right, for those just joining, let me just quickly reset the room. So the conversation has, evolved like most conversations, but we started by discussing the pronouncement by Sheikh Gumi, who some consider as the Minister of Terrorism Affairs in the country, that if the government heeds the advice or the recommendation of state assemblies across the country to designate the bandits operating primarily in the northwest part of the country as a terrorist group, that the implication of that would be that Nigeria's unity might be threatened. This is because, according to Sheikh Gumi, if you classify the bandits as terrorists, that might basically make it easier for them to recruit young people, especially in the northwest, who, and this is to quote him directly, will find it easier to shout Allahu Akbar and carry AK-47 and fight against a secular, immoral state like Nigeria. So essentially, Sheikh Gumi is warning the Nigerian government not to declare the bandit, groups as terrorists. Otherwise, the consequence would be drastic for the country, especially regarding its unity and continued existence as a nation. So we're examining what that statement means, the implication for Nigeria, what it means for the federal government. How is it so that Gumi can make such declaration, and why is the government hesitating in declaring this group a terrorist, group? We've also gone through the legal perspective. All right, we've talked about how we need to legally define what is terrorism, who is a terrorist, and what amounts to acts of terrorism. And I think Tolani gave us, the definitions from the Terrorism Acts of the country, and then we gained legal perspective on that. So we've been discussing that, and we're highlighting all of these perspectives to the matter. If you want to make a contribution, please raise your hand so that we can, bring you up on stage. Because we've been going on and on and on for hours now, and then, I think we've actually quite exhausted the conversation. But I don't know if anyone here has any other contribution to make. Awal, you have not given us your opinion, actually. Awal, mute your mic.
Professor P, thank you. I have no opinion on this, not yet. I'm still trying to read through all the drama. And I'm not one to just make a rash contribution unless I've thought it through. Thank you.
Thank